Hello, and this is my first prototype for Alpha Fragments. For this prototype, I made a quiz game that goes by the name of FragQuiz, where the player has a bunch of categories that they can play quizzes around across a few categories I've created here, and the theme Fragments comes into play when the image shown in the quiz is fragmented, so it's hard to identify because of these fragments. Each category has a total of 3 different levels per round of quizzes, and an easy category and a hard category. Main influences behind the prototype in this situation were general quiz games, like Sporcle and the Buzz quiz games that used to be playable on PlayStation several years ago, that were quite famous for their multiple choice options. I tried to put a lot of effort into developing the visuals for the prototype. Also, making it on Unreal Engine is a bit different to most app and quiz kind of games, which would probably more likely to be made on Adobe XD, but I wanted to do something different. Besides, I have quite strong working knowledge of Unreal Engine, so I wanted to get straight into working on the prototype rather than wanting to spend time learning new things. I definitely put a lot of effort into making sure the visuals were aligned appropriately, and there was good guidance for the player, knowing what to do. I've got lots of options here of how they can interact with the prototype, and the text is made very clear and it's consistent. It's got the same design, and I've made it feel like an actual quiz game. With the options I've put in, if I were to improve this prototype, I would probably add in more levels for each quiz and maybe more categories, and just in general add more depth to the game, really, because I've never really known too many developers that have published quiz games based around fragmented images, so it would be interesting to see if I could actually turn this into an actual game project in the future. So yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Hello, and this is my second prototype for the theme paper. This prototype is a game set in a paper building where the player must find clues from both a handbook and within the building to discover the numbers required to crack the code to exit the building. To complete the game, the player will start off with a handwritten storybook based on a story of how to escape the building without directly telling a player what to do, with the player also being required to roam around the building and look for a total of 6 notes containing words written on them that could be found on different Once the player has found all 6 notes in game whilst also reading them, they will gain access to a room on the top floor which will unlock and break for the player once they've collected all the notes. Once they have accessed this room, the player will be met with 2 larger notes, one displaying the notes in the order of the numbers they correlate to for the code, and some written text on the other note telling the player to read through the book to find these words on the notes and see what page numbers they are on. As these words on each note represent a number for the code in the order that they are listed on the other note, it can also be seen that the first letters of these words spell out paper. Once the player has the code, they will be required to go back to the exit door and type the code in once the player has figured out the code. And we'll do that now. And the code in this situation is 249604. Once they get the code, the door will break and they'll be able to exit the building. And once they have done that, they'll be rewarded with a link to a copy of the digital book.
Hello and welcome to my prototype for theme 3, which is 10 seconds or less. For this theme, I've made an adventure game set in a prison, which was heavily inspired off of my environment design for my level design module from the previous trimester, although I've changed the layout and gameplay structure ever so slightly. Basically, the goal is that the player has a total of 10 challenges to do in order to escape the prison. The player must complete these challenges in under 10 seconds to reach the checkpoint to the next challenge, or else they'll be sent back to the start. What makes the prototype unique, in my opinion, is that each time a player advances through the challenges, so if they complete challenge number 1 and advance to challenge 2, their player speed decreases by 50 using the Unreal Engine blueprints every time they advance across a challenge, which means that the game takes longer. The player will take longer to make their way across the challenges because of the speed deficit that occurs. There is one slight issue, unfortunately, and that is because I was unfortunately unable to get the countdown timer to reset itself each time the player completes a challenge, as seen in these blueprints. I have the timer widget and the timer structure set up, but unfortunately I was unable to get it to count down by 10 seconds in order for it to reset. I am able to get the timer to count down by 10 seconds, but only one time before it says the game is over. So we'll have a playthrough right now and see what I've done so far. So, as you can see, I've got you can see the speed level for the player, and the seconds left X, which in this circumstance would display the amount of time from 10 to 0 that the player would have to complete each challenge, and it should reset when the widget changes number as well. The challenges vary in terms of like difficulty and time randomly. Some challenges have required animations to be completed, some trigger volumes, experimenting with gravity and destructible mesh, and you can see the player's getting really slow now, and so forth. Obviously this timer may need to be adjusted, or the speed may need to be adjusted in the future. There's still a few errors with some of the challenges for this one, for example, where you could still open the door even if you haven't collected all the keys, for example there. This one is dark. Challenges definitely get a lot harder as the game goes on. Maybe I might have to decrease some of the speed depending on when I get the timer set up, but for the time being, the prototype does show a good level of functionality and it's definitely workable.